Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about DeSantis because he has officially, after announcing it last week and confirming it being on a Twitter space, he has officially thrown his hat in the race and is now running for president. Now, we already knew this, by the way. We already knew about this before he teased his announcement a week before the Twitter space debacle, which we will talk about. We already knew at some point he was gonna throw his hat in the presidential race. You know, we have been seeing him travel across the country, not focusing primarily on Florida. I personally think that it is relatively a good thing that DeSantis is running because competition is not necessarily a bad thing, especially for people like Donald Trump. I also pride myself as both a Trump cultist and a D-simp. Probably because I live in Florida and support and voted for both in 2020 and 2022. Now, in his first year of his first term in 2019, this guy has been a beloved figure in the state and was universally liked across the board, but recently has grown increasingly controversial and has become a very controversial governor, especially with regards of some of the stuff that he has been passing for Florida. Some of them I can agree with, and a lot of them I don't. I voted for him in 2022, I will admit it, even though he has been making questionable decisions that is literally second-guessing my support for him. And that goes with every single political figure I support. I was initially against the idea of him running, and I strongly advised him not to run and focus more on his state. You know, focus more on Florida and leave the presidency alone, at least until, 2028. Just leave everything alone and focus on Florida. One, because you are the governor of my state and have a responsibility over us, and also, you do have the risk of dividing the party, which is why I was against initially him running. I would have much preferred an exploratory committee. You know, DeSantis just launching an exploratory committee to see his options of what to do in the future after he is done with the governorship, or to see whether or not he is ready to run in 2024 or not. That's the point of the exploratory committee. However, if you live in a state like Florida, where people are both Trump cultists and D-simps, I don't really see that much division here, at least that I know, since for the most part, Republicans here like both candidates, although they do prefer one over the other, preferably Trump. Maybe if we get hit by a hurricane at some point this year, and Trump and DeSantis both campaign here, while helping out with hurricane damage, I think that really is the litmus test for both candidates. But with DeSantis, I think, even though he didn't announce until this month, we already knew well beforehand that he was at some point going to run. We saw him at one point in Iowa and in New Hampshire, essentially, running a de facto campaign without even filing the proper paperwork and actually confirming it. So even before his announcement, we already knew at some point that he was going to announce, and the Chekhov's gun finally went off. So we're going to be talking about my own thoughts about it, talking about its significance, and a little bit of Trump versus DeSantis talk as well, from the perspective of a Florida man who is also one of DeSantis's constituents. So in this video, we're just going to be talking about DeSantis running for president and his campaign in general, as well as even the launch as well, including my own thoughts about it. So anyways, my governor is running for president. He has officially announced that he is running for president and has officially launched his campaign. And his campaign launch, well, it could have gotten a lot worse. A lot of people are calling this campaign launch a disaster, or rather, disaster, if you want to use puns like that. Now, part of the reason with the campaign launch, why it was so bad, why it was considered a fail, it doesn't have to do with DeSantis himself really, or even DeSantis alone. It has to do with Twitter Spaces, where he chose to do his exclusive campaign launch to go out and say, hey, I'm going on live with Elon Musk on Twitter Spaces, and I'm going to announce that I'm running, and I'm going to talk about my campaign that I just launched and stuff. Kind of thing to launch his campaign. And I really do not mind that at all. It is a good idea and a pretty good strategy. It does pressure Trump to get back on Twitter. And by the way, speaking of which, an insider working on his campaign did confirm that at some point he will be returning to Twitter. This campaign launch might have something to do with it. So, you know, you might get some more mean tweets and more memes at some point in the future. Stay tuned for that. There is some speculation going around that Trump is pissed about the fact that DeSantis was even announcing there, and is also trolling him right now on Truth Social. In fact, the video that I just showed you in the beginning comes from Trump's Truth Social, making fun of DeSantis' announcement on Twitter Spaces. The memes have basically just written themselves to be fair at this point, though, because the first, 20 minutes of the announcement was nothing but a fucking glitch fest. You know, you couldn't hear DeSantis. There was a lot of lag here and there. Initially, I thought it was like my Wi-Fi when it was glitching out like that. And there was a lot of echoing, there was a lot of background noises, and it was falling out, and at some point, it completely drops entirely. And for 20-30 minutes, it's just nothing but silence. And so you didn't really get much of a campaign announcement. What you got was a jumbled mess and a complete clusterfuck. Which, by the way, is not a great way to launch a presidential campaign. Now, you really cannot pin this on DeSantis. This isn't necessarily a knock on Ron DeSantis. However, when people see and react to the complete clusterfuck failure to launch campaign announcement, and most of the talk about the announcement, take a look through Twitter where he did the announcement. You see that DeSantis is trending on Twitter, no surprise. He just announced that he's running for president, but disaster was one of the top 3 trends for the entire week, literally with more results than DeSantis itself. Now, reason for that is because, of course, Trump fans, liberals, and leftoids are both lampooning him, but also because the launch itself, even by his own supporters, saw this as a huge L. The launch was an absolute disaster and a major L on DeSantis. On a scale of 1 to 10 of how big of a fiasco this is, where 1 is, you accidentally said fuck during a campaign rally as a candidate, and you're trying to cast yourself as a clean, family-friendly man. Okay, I can understand that. That's forgivable. Doesn't really impact the campaign whatsoever. And 10 being, you cast yourself as a devout Christian candidate, and you were seen and exposed getting drunk at a gay strip club with drag queens. Or you went online and you said a bunch of racist and homophobic slurs on the internet while playing a match at Call of Duty or something like that. I would theoretically put this somewhere around a 6 or a 7, maybe even an 8 on the debacle scale. This is Howard Dean's infamous scream that killed his campaign, or Hillary Clinton saying, "Super Mario, run to the polls." Or I think it was Pokemon, go to the polls, if I remember correctly. We all know what happened after she said that.
But I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
Or even Beto O'Rourke saying, "Damn right we're gonna take your AR-15s and AK-47s at the debate stage shortly after a shooting that happened in Texas at the time." This is potentially a campaign killer, and we know this because it is being memed to oblivion so goddamn much. Non-stop, end-to-end fucking snark and memes with regards to DeSantis being dumped on him because it wasn't really an announcement at all. And what announcement you did get was low energy, it was poorly put together, sort of winding and low effort, almost feels like a literal epitome of Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. That's basically what happened in this announcement. Think of it this way, a campaign announcement, when you are a viable candidate, DeSantis, by the way, is in double digits. If I remember correctly, I think he's running near 20 points. Okay, he's potentially viable in the field. He was, for a while, seen as a possible successor to Trump. He's the only person who can feasibly and realistically have any path to victory against Trump, who is around 40 to 50 points ahead at the moment in the RCP aggregate the last time I checked, against literally the rest of the field. Nobody else has a shot. Yes, I do like Vivek Ramaswamy too, but he's not winning against Trump, even though he talks just like him. He's basically like a younger version of Trump. He rails against the establishment a lot in his campaign rallies, but he has absolutely no shot in beating Trump. If anything, I think he fits perfectly in a Trump cabinet. I hope Trump, when he wins his primary, gets Vivek involved in his campaign and possibly a position in his administration. I don't know, maybe like Secretary of State or something like that. That's as close as he'll get, and I don't mind that at all. Other than that, nobody has a shot against Trump. They don't have a snowball's chance in hell. It's just not possible. If DeSantis had not decided to run, nobody else really could get in that could possibly win. You're a viable candidate, you filed the paperwork to run for president, and you officially launched your campaign. And the official slogan for your presidential campaign is, "Make America Florida," which, by the way, is a bad idea too for multiple reasons, and I'll get into why that slogan is stupid and poorly chosen. Now, it's no surprise that DeSantis is, trying his hardest to be just like Trump. I mean, it sounds too close and too similar to "Make America Great Again," "Make America Florida." I mean, it does sound good to people that like Florida and Florida politics. Not going to work, Ron. Doesn't really correlate to federal policy, and it also sounds too similar to "Make America Great Again." Again, just like what I said, it's minimal effort. You're supposed to have a great deal of energy, be enthused, be this charismatic person, be just as charismatic as Trump, and get other people enthusiastic to turn out for you in the polls. Hey, I'm running for the presidency. Here are the number of things I want to do, and here are all my glorious accomplishments as governor. Now, usually, in US politics, when you announce that you're running for president, it's covered by cable news and all forms of mass media. If one cable news station is talking over you, by the way, that happens to Trump a lot, in pretty much every speech that he does, nothing but live, never-ending fact-checking of everything that Donald Trump says 30 to 40 minutes into his speech, and you've seen only 5 minutes of the actual speech uninterrupted. The rest is all the pundits bitching and ranting while he's talking. If one piece of mass media is doing that, or it drops unexpectedly, they had a glitch or an issue, or some form of technical difficulties is going on behind the scenes, there are other networks that you can watch on. There are other forms of mass media you can use. This is an exclusive Twitter space. Where else could you have watched it? Well, watching reactions to the Twitter space. Well, what are those reactions right now? Again, just take a casual look all over the internet right now, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Reddit. Look all over the internet and tell me what you see, including from people who like DeSantis and the Florida folk like myself. Well, that sucks. That was pretty uneventful. 20 minutes of non-stop glitching, followed by 30 minutes of dead silence. Wow, what a great announcement that was! You've got no energy, you got a shitty, cringe, and ineffective slogan that is essentially ripped off from Trump in 2016, to the point where most of the people valuing the situation are saying that this was a fail. Even your own supporters, by the way, and the people that live in your own state are jamming you on this. I really don't think that this is going to sink too well for him. Like, some of the MAGA-tards and the leftoids are like, well, this is going to help Trump, actually. Ooh, this announcement is so bad that Trump is going to skyrocket in the polls. Trump will probably get a boost in the polls. I really don't think that. But I don't think that DeSantis is going to get what he usually would be getting, like a significant bump after a certain announcement. He might, maybe get like a point or two simply because he's officially in. Other than that, fuck me, man. I'm really struggling to find any positivity on this whole thing. That campaign announcement was such a major black eye for DeSantis. Now, what about your campaign slogan? Make America Florida. Well, for starters, it is a ripped-off Florida equivalent of the famous Trump slogan, Make America Great Again, except instead of making America great again, you're essentially attempting to turn the entire country into Florida. Doesn't really work well with federal policy, but I kinda sorta understand what you're saying here by saying, Make America Florida. Florida is certainly, and DeSantis does take credit for this, he had one of the better performing COVID-19 responses out of all states nationally. He was the one who kept everything for the most part open during surges of COVID. He also, on day one, took action in the aftermath of Parkland, firing the sheriff, firing all and every cop that was there at the time who weren't doing anything, sacking the school board superintendent, cleaning house of the entire school board, and holding everybody who was responsible for allowing it to happen accountable for their ineptitude. DeSantis also helped create the largest budget surplus in Florida's entire history, giving first responders $1,000 worth of bonuses. His tax reform policies in Florida helped out as well. DeSantis literally gave me and my family thousands of dollars of our own money back, believe it or not. He also signed a law allowing predators to get the death penalty, and a great 100% A+ response to Hurricane Ian. He's also gone in against censorship more than any other GOP leader that I can think of, except with regards to HB 269. Again, another red flag of skepticism for DeSantis. But those are all of the accomplishments that I can think of that DeSantis did as governor. Oh, and I also forgot one thing. Fighting against critical race theory and ending wokeness. That's a big one. He's gone in against the wokeifying of the educational system and fighting back hard against politically correct and woke culture. He also famously trolled Martha's Vineyard, and he's very, very fashionable on the issue that involved immigration. Although Florida doesn't really share a land border with any other country, unless you count Cuba, the Bahamas, and Haiti as maritime borders, which I think would work, but it's not like the southern border that we have in the contiguous United States. So it's a little bit different from, like, let's say, Texas, Arizona, or California. Although California, not trying as much as Texas is. Wonder why. And Arizona, on the other hand, just completely gave up on the issue entirely, and it affected them pretty badly, and now they're having problems. So he's done some good things that I like. So, in that context, if that's what you mean, you know, make America Florida, I guess it can work. Make America Florida. Okay, secure the border, that's good. Fighting against wokeness, that's also good. We like to see that. Lowering taxes, although I will point out that Florida is one of the most uninhabitable states to live in right now fiscally, especially with regards to housing. And I can tell you this firsthand as somebody who lives here. I'm feeling the pinch of this godforsaken cost of living. Like I'm literally paying through the goddamn nose just to afford anything here. So thank you so much for popping, housing bubble in Florida. That's not necessarily DeSantis' fault primarily. After all, we can't forget brand inflation is still a thing. But you know, at the same time, I don't think people want to see like a 50 or 60% higher cost of living in Des Moines or in Columbus. Make America Florida, that sounds great. We love to see that. But think about what that signals to the independent voter that doesn't live in Florida. I know I've mentioned this a lot in my videos. The highest concentration of independent voters live primarily in the Rust Belt. The same type of people who voted for Obama twice and voted for Trump twice. That's usually your target demographic. Now again, America First voters are very tolerant of and virtually agree with most of these policies. Maybe not the red flag policies in general, but looking at what DeSantis has on the table, you know, the various objectives and the planks of the platform are pretty decent. They're good. They're not that dissimilar to what Trump is offering, by the way. So, you know, some Trump fans that are totally attacking DeSantis, well, you could pick out a couple of things that he's done that you don't like. Like in my case, HB 269, don't say gay, red flag laws, and whatnot. However, you do have to give him the benefit of the doubt and give him at least some credit for having a vast bulk of overlap. Like 99% of politicians in the Republican Party, I agree with a lot of the things that both candidates say, and I like most of their policies. But then they have like 2 or 3 things that they say, pass, or do that just make me completely fucking cringe and second guess everything they do. Trump obviously has a lot of these moments. The grab him by the pussy, the time he mocked that disabled reporter, the airstrikes in the Middle East that he did, the bump stock ban, and whatnot. There are a lot of things that I disagree with Trump on and don't like him for it. And the same exact thing goes with my governor. My governor, who is officially running for president, also had these moments too. HB 269 and the others I've mentioned earlier. So I don't think that on those tokens, they did a bad job or he's doing a bad job. By the way, also worth note, he's currently attempting to clamp down on crime. He made it very clear in the past, especially in the peak of the George Floyd riots 3 years ago. Hey, here in Florida, people are armed and can defend themselves. We are a castle doctrine and a stand-your-ground state. Go to a blue state if you want to start a bunch of riots, do muggings and burglaries, and throw rocks at cop cars. Alright then, round of applause to that. That's you talking the talk and walking the walk. That's fine. Speaking softly and carrying a big stick is not only a good thing, but is actually important. However, what is Florida cast off as by the legacy media and among certain voting blocs? As an alt-right shithole full of Nazis, white supremacists, and homophobes. Doesn't really help the situation at all considering that you are in fact a southern state, and, depending on where you live, share the characteristics of a southern state. I do have a video in the works talking about the NAACP and the ADL issuing travel advisories and calling for boycotts of the state of Florida because of what our governor is doing, which I think is ridiculous. But you get the idea, right? If anything, having a statement like that, you end up locking yourself into state politics when you use your state in your official slogan. That doesn't make any sense either. You are reminding people every time you use it, hey, I am a Floridian politician who happens to be the governor of Florida, and I'm planning on making this country just like my state. Well, that sounds fine. For Floridians, though. Most people down here already approve of the job you're doing down here. But does that carry over or have anything to do with Iowa, or Wisconsin, or Nevada, or Pennsylvania? Not at all. And I can admit, people do love their state. People are proud of their state. I like my state, but I don't necessarily love it, but I like it down here. We got a lot of beautiful beaches, we got palm trees, alligators, crocodiles, flamingos, manatees, oranges. We've got Disney World and Universal, and we're about to get a Super Nintendo World in just a couple of years if I remember correctly. But on the contrary, we also have high cost of living and hurricanes down here. I don't necessarily love my state, but I love it down here. I absolutely do. That's state pride, and a lot of people do have that. Florida is the third largest state by population, with 22 million people living in it, just ahead of New York, which has 19 million people, and only behind Texas, which is the second largest with 27 million, if I remember correctly, and California, which is number one with 35 million. But all four of those states only make 1/3 of the US population. Florida is an even smaller percentage of that population. And also, may I remind you that state and federal politics are two different games. Think of it like the NHL. You can be the greatest team in the regular season, win the President's Trophy and have like 140 points with 70 wins. But that doesn't mean that you're going to win the Stanley Cup. You might end up winning in the first round and get swept in the second, or you might end up blowing a 3-1 series lead in the first round. Looking at you, Boston Bruins. Or in football, you can be a superstar player in college football and be absolutely dog water once you make it to the NFL level. The same situation goes with state and federal politics. They're just two completely different things. Just because you're really good in the state doesn't mean you're really good federally, if you know what I mean. I have no clue what my governor is doing. Ron should have announced several months ago when he was riding an Apex, when he was traveling across the country and at least not keeping it a secret for the past 6 months. Also worth note that before he was announced that he was running for the presidency, he was already traveling across the country, essentially running a de facto campaign already. That already kind of sort of affects him negatively already. I mean, he could have also announced around the time of Trump's indictment, or even before that, when he was still, at the very least, higher in the polls. Could have still gotten his boost. He should have done that all in a regular, normal manner. And he'd still be behind Trump, but he'd be at least a little bit closer. The gap would essentially just be significantly less if he had done things, a little bit more correctly. Now he's essentially become a meme. Right now, I just don't see anything that can really help or save his campaign unless Trump dies or has to drop out of the race due to a health issue. And you know things are bad when you are polling less than 20% in your own state, especially when you are the current governor of that state who is really successful there. That's how bad your campaign is. So yes, this is definitely a disaster of a campaign launch and a huge L to his campaign as a whole. And you can go and watch the whole entire announcement, but, you know, it's not really worth the watch, and what you get is not greatly informative and is rather dry and completely stale and, you know, low charisma, low energy, and completely low effort. And prior to that, it's just a bunch of echoing microphones, non-stop lag, complete silence, and people that are talking over one another, and people who are complaining that they can't hear. Just nothing but a bunch of random technical difficulties and people talking over another, complaining about that we cannot hear you. Sorry, Ron, please excuse us. I know that you're about to announce that you're running for the presidency, but we can't hear you right now. There's so many issues here, so give us like 15, 20 more minutes. What a joke, man. What a joke. I bet Elon is really happy about this right now. I'm pretty sure he's hoping that Trump actually gets back on the platform at this point, just by that fiasco gong show of an announcement that happened. Certainly will help with the traffic, and I bet Trump's core fans will be ecstatic once he finally rejoins, which is now inevitable at this point. So get ready, boys and girls. The 2024 elections are ramping up very quickly, and we are expected to get more people to throw their hat into the race as well. The first wave of debates, I believe, are next month. I'm not quite sure if there really are going to be debates for both parties, but we'll have to wait and see. And we are less than a year away from the Iowa caucuses. So 2024 is coming a lot quicker than you might think. And I will keep you up to date on everything 2024 related because, as always, I'm your news guy. That's what I do. So be sure to subscribe and turn on those noties if you haven't already. It's going to be a lot of fun. Now I know you will expect me to say leave all your thoughts in the comments since I end the conversation down to you, but I'm pretty sure the comments will get a little bit dicey at times. Even though I am a small channel, I'm still going to have to monitor a little bit just in case this video has a high view count or a high comment count. But still, I support free speech, so leave all your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think about DeSantis' campaign? Is it a disaster? Which I know most of you will see it as a disaster after listening to it. But what do you think about the shape of 2024 since DeSantis finally threw his hat in the ring? We finally got the Trump versus DeSantis matchup that has been teased since last year. How do you think this will affect the landscape of next year's election here in the United States? Who do you think you're going to support in the primary? This goes for both parties, by the way. I'd love to hear all of that, so leave all your thoughts in the comments down below. That's all I'm going to say here. This video is already long enough, and with that being said, proper outro time. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to hit that like button down below, and if you're new around here, be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the little notification bell. Be sure to follow me on all my social medias, links are in the description below. That includes all new tech sites. Those will be there as well. You're definitely missing out if you're not following me on all those social medias, especially on Twitter. Share this video with your friends, families, boyfriends, girlfriends, enemies, whomever. Definitely helps me out a lot, helps the video grow, and helps grow the channel if you share this video around. And since most of my viewers come from the United States, are you excited for the 2024 election? There's gonna be a lot to talk about. I know I've been gone for a while, but after the summer, I'm gonna be going full force on content creation, especially with next year's election ramping up. The year is going by really fast. There's just so much to keep up lately. I know I've mentioned this earlier, but I have been gone, but I am officially back, full force on content. So make sure you're subscribed and turn on those notifications, and make sure you set the notifications to all and not partial. But anyways, guys, like, subscribe, ring notifications, and until then, take care, talk soon, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.